don't need television. Not as long as we have our imagination.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. The first 3 seasons of SpongeBob are the best thing ever made. They came out 26 years ago and they are still perfect. Everyone loves them, so I just need to figure out why. In 2025, Time released a special SpongeBob issue called Global Icon. Clips on YouTube hit 70 million views, and the franchise makes more money now than it did at its peak. I tried to see what's going on. How most of the fans who were born already after 2004 still remember exactly first 3 seasons. What actually happened between Stephen Hillenburg and Nickelodeon, and why are the new episodes still making the old ones more important?
Are ya ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh!
Before SpongeBob became a global hit, this story didn't even start with animation. It starts with science. In the 1920s, a guy named Stephen Hillenburg studied marine biology in California. He felt pretty good and even preparing to become a teacher, and basically that's what he's doing. When Hillenburg started teaching kids about ocean life at a marine institute, he quickly realized something. Marine biology might be interesting for him, but not for kids. He needed to encourage kids in some way. Trying to do that, the world saw the first comic made by Hillenburg, the Intertidal Zone. The idea was simple: explain ocean life with characters, fish, crabs, starfish, and one very basic sponge. His name was Bob. At this point there was nothing special, just a simple drawing used to explain ocean things. But while working on a comic, Hillenburg actually started adding personality. The characters became more expressive, more emotional, more human, and slowly Bob changed too. He became more energetic, more optimistic, and eventually got his iconic square shape. At some point, the project stopped being just educational. It started feeling like something bigger. Young Hillenburg tried to publish it and got rejected. And this is the moment where most people quit, but not Steven. Instead, he made a decision that completely changed his life. He switched from science to animation. In the early 90s, he applied to California Institute of the Arts, one of the best animation schools in the US. There he learned how cartoons actually work: storytelling, timing, visual comedy. He started making short animated films and slowly built a completely new skill set. After graduating, his first real job in animation was joining Rocka's Modern Life by working with creator Joe Murray. And this moment may be the best in Steven's life, because here Hillenburg learned everything: how to write episodes, how to direct scenes, how to work with voice actors. Basically, this was his training ground, and that's also where he met people who would later become part of the SpongeBob. For example, Tom Kenny, who would later voice SpongeBob himself. When Rocka's Modern Life ended in 1996, Hillenburg was out of a job again, but this time he had experience, and also he still had that old idea, the underwater world. So he came back to it, but now with a completely different mindset, not as a teacher, as a creator, and everything changed. He started building a full concept, a city under the ocean, characters acting like humans, jobs, friendships, routines, and at the center of it, a very specific kind of main character, genuinely optimistic, almost naive. Hillenburg later said he was inspired by Charlie Chaplin, that kind of simple, physical, expressive comedy. At first, the character was called Sponge Boy, and with the help of Tom Kenny, he finally got his voice. High-pitched, energetic, a little bit weird, but very real. So let's consider a world Hillenburg created a little bit closer. By the time SpongeBob SquarePants started in 1999, the creators already had a very clear idea of how this world works. The show takes place in Bikini Bottom, a city at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, under Bikini Atoll. But the logic of this place is inconsistent. There are roads, restaurants, jobs. Characters go to work, pay money, watch TV. At the same time, they live underwater, drink water, start fires, and the size of buildings can change from episode to episode. And no one ever explains it, because the show doesn't rely on logic, it relies on characters. The main character, SpongeBob SquarePants, is based partly on a real sea sponge, a Plesinopus and partly on a regular kitchen sponge, which is why he's square. His personality is very specific. He's overly optimistic, easily excited, and genuinely enjoys things most people would find boring. SpongeBob is a complete innocent, not an idiot, said Hillenburg. He likes bubbles, he's interested in random topics like friction, and he's unusually attached to his job. He works as a fry cook at the Krusty Krab and treats it seriously, not as a joke, as something important. His best friend, Patrick Star, is the opposite in almost every way. He has no structure in his life, he spends most of his time sleeping, eating, or doing nothing. He's easily distracted and often doesn't understand what's happening, but he is consistent. His logic doesn't work by normal rules, but it follows its own system. That's why moments like "No, this is Patrick" or the whole "Wombo" explanation feel random but still working. Then there's Squidward Tentacles. He works the same job as SpongeBob, but experiences it completely differently. He's pissed, tired, and thinks he deserves something more. He wants to be an artist, plays the clarinet, but he's not very good at it, and that contrast between how he sees himself and how he actually lives is the whole character. Most of them are connected through one place, the Krusty Krab, owned by Mr. Krabs. He is built around one idea: money. Everything he does is connected to profit. That includes his job, his decisions, and sometimes even his relationship with his daughter, Pearl Krabs. Pearl is a whale, Mr. Krabs is a crab. It's never explained, and the show doesn't try to explain it. Across from the Krusty Krab is a chum bucket, run by Plankton. He used to be friends with Mr. Krabs, now his entire role in the story is very simple. He tries to steal the Krabby Patty formula over and over again, and fails. His restaurant doesn't work, his ideas don't work, but he doesn't stop. Outside of work, the world expands through other characters. Sandy Chicks is a squirrel from Texas living underwater. She survives using a glass dome filled with air and a suit. She's a scientist and inventor, and one of the few characters who actually understands how things are supposed to function. Mrs. Puff exists mostly because SpongeBob needs to learn how to drive. She runs a boating school, and the main joke is simple: SpongeBob will never pass, no matter how many times he tries. Even smaller characters matter. Gary the Snail, SpongeBob's pet, doesn't talk, he just makes sounds, but he often acts more rational than SpongeBob himself. The same logic applies to locations. SpongeBob lives in a pineapple. According to Stephen Hillenburg, that choice wasn't random. It matches his personality. Patrick lives under a rock. Minimal space, almost no furniture. Sometimes it changes, sometimes it doesn't. Squidward lives in a house shaped like a stone head, inspired by Easter Island statues. Inside, it looks more refined, because that's how he sees himself. Sandy lives in a controlled environment. Mr. Krabs lives inside an anchor. Everything is built around the character. When Hillenburg had a full world, he prepared a pitch for Nickelodeon, and didn't just explain it. He built a presentation, drawings, character designs, story ideas. When he presented it, it stood out immediately, because it didn't feel like a typical cartoon. It felt different, more visual, more absurd, more alive. Nickelodeon approved the show, and in 1999, SpongeBob SquarePants officially premiered. At first, nobody expected that would happen next, but very quickly it became clear. This wasn't just another kids show. It worked for everyone. Kids liked the energy, adults understood the humor, and the characters felt real. We just try to make ourselves laugh and then ask if it's appropriate for children. Later, Hillenburg explained the core idea behind the show. No matter how weird the world is, optimism still works. And that idea came directly from his own story. Part 3. Hillenburg leaving Nickelodeon. After making 3 perfect seasons in 2002, Stephen Hillenburg leaving Nickelodeon. And the most important part here is not that he left, but why? He didn't get fired, he didn't lose control. The show was successful. He left at the exact moment when everything was working. After 3 seasons and the first movie, Hillenburg made a decision that most creators never make. Instead of asking how to continue, he decided to stop. Not because he had to, but because in his mind, the story was already complete. I always pushed back on doing long form. I wanted to concentrate on character humor. Overall, he said everything he wanted to say through these characters. He built the world the way he imagined it. For him, SpongeBob wasn't supposed to run forever. It wasn't designed as an endless system. It was a creative idea with a beginning, a development, and a natural ending point. And he chose to live exactly there, at the peak. But the problem is, SpongeBob wasn't just a creative idea anymore. By that point, it had already become something bigger, a brand, a business, a global success. And Nickelodeon couldn't just stop it. So the show continued. New seasons came out, new episodes, new writers, new ideas. And this is exactly the moment where the entire conversation around SpongeBob splits into 2 completely different perspectives. From one side, you have people saying, this is where it went wrong. This is where SpongeBob was ruined. This is not the same show anymore. And if you compare it directly to the first 3 seasons, they are right. But that comparison itself is the mistake, because it assumes that everything after season 3 is supposed to be the same thing, when in reality it isn't. The SpongeBob that Hillenburg created, the one with a very specific tone, structure and philosophy, already ended. Those first 3 seasons are not just the best part of the show, they are the complete version of it. Everything that came after is not really a continuation of that idea. It's something else entirely. It's what happened when a finished creative work becomes a part of a larger system that keeps producing content. And once you look at it like that, something interesting happens. You stop expecting the new episodes to be as good or as meaningful. You stop comparing them scene by scene, and instead you start seeing their actual function. They keep the name alive. Because without new content, without constant releases, without this ongoing presence, SpongeBob would slowly fade out of public attention. It would become something people remember but don't actively engage with. And that changes everything. Because the reason younger people discovered SpongeBob, it's not because of the original seasons directly. Most of the fans wasn't there when the first episodes came out. They didn't grow up with the original run. The only reason they knew this show existed at all is because Nickelodeon never stopped pushing it forward. New episodes, returns, clips, random moments, all of that kept the name SpongeBob visible. And sooner or later, that leads you back to the first 3 seasons, back to the original version, back to the thing that actually matters. So even if the later seasons are different, even if they don't have the same tone, the same writing, or the same feeling, they serve a different purpose. They act like an entry point, a constant reminder that something exists behind them. And that creates a cycle. New content brings new people. New people discover the name, and then they go back to the original, again and again. And in that sense, the business machine that many people criticize is actually one of the main reasons the original SpongeBob is still relevant today. Not because it continues the story, but because it keeps pointing back to it. And instead of destroying the original, it keeps it alive. Because as long as the name SpongeBob SquarePants continues to exist in any form, people will keep finding their way to where it all started. And that's why those first 3 seasons don't lose their value over time. They become the standard, the reference point, the thing everything else is measured against. And no matter how much the show changes, that part stays untouched.